Hi, I'm John Stevenson, and we're going to be looking at Psalm 62, the Song of the Silent Soul. There's an old song that was done back when I was young called The Sounds of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel. And you heard the title and you think, well, make up your mind. Is it sound or is it silent? The same thing here. Is it a song or is it quiet? Well, a little bit of both. And I'm taking the title from the refrain. So let's jump in. For the choir director, here's the superscription. For the choir director, according to Jeduthun. Now, that term Jeduthun, we've actually seen it back in Psalm 39. He was one of the priestly musicians mentioned in First Chronicles chapter 25, verse 1. And his sons also served as temple musicians. We didn't talk about the meaning of the name, though. And names have meaning. That Jedu part, Judah, remember, was the word for praise, also was the name of one of the tribes of Israel. And so I think that might be the case here. It sounds a lot like that word for praise, Judah, Jeduthun. And so here, here his job was praise, his lineage was praise, his whole family was all about praise, and even his name spoke to that as well. And this is a Psalm of David. My soul waits in silence for God only. Now this is the language of faith, of waiting, no, notice waiting in silence. Now there's been a lot of waiting for the Lord and trusting in the Lord and speaking to the Lord and calling to the Lord. But notice there's a silence here. Now the psalm doesn't stop there and get quiet. We're going to have the words of the psalm continue. But there's a stillness, there's a rest, there's a waiting, there's a realization that my own effort isn't cutting it or won't cut it, and so I'm going to wait for the Lord. And notice our translators added the term waits because, as you know, my soul is in silence. I think the waiting idea is there. That's the silent part. For God only. From him is, and notice, for God only, reminds me of the story, mythological story of this person who was rock climbing, and I've done some rock climbing when I was a lot younger. And there's something exhilarating about holding on with your fingertips. But here in the story, somebody gets to a position where he's holding on without a safety rope, and he's, he can't move past that. And he hears something above him, and he says, "Is there anybody up there?" And he hears a voice coming down saying, "I've got you. I can see what's going on. I've got you. Just let go, and I'll catch you." And the person with on his fingertips says, "Well, is there anyone else up there?" But notice this is waiting for God only. It's recognizing that only He can save, and that I'm out of options. That there's no one else. I like the way Peter put it in John chapter 6, where the crowds turned around and left. They didn't like the teachings of Jesus. They turned around and left, and Jesus turns to his 12 disciples and says, "Are you guys going too?" And Peter says, "To whom would we go? You alone have the words of eternal life." And that's what's happening here. My soul waits in silence for God only. From him is my salvation. He only is my rock and my salvation, my stronghold, all images of security. I will not be greatly shaken. And I can't help but notice, I won't be greatly shaken. Yes, I'm a bit shaken, but I'm not going to be greatly shaken. It's okay. Uh, Not that I have this, God has this. Now, just so you know, this is the refrain. We're going to see this repeated in a bit. It won't be exactly word for word, but it will be close enough to be recognizable. So let's continue. How long will you assail, O man? And this is bringing up the problem. So we had a statement of faith, but now the problem. How long will you assail a man that you may murder him, all of you? Notice it's speaking now not to God, but to bad people, like a leaning wall, like a tottering fence. I suspect that this is sort of an image of something that is unsafe. And you guys are coming against the righteous, and you're unsafe. You're It might not be obvious, but that which is supposed to be secure isn't. Notice verse 4, they have counseled only to thrust him down from his high position. They delight in falsehood. They bless with their mouth, and notice there's a blessing. They say they're blessing, but inwardly they curse. Selah. And now comes the pause. So that's the problem. We saw the attitude of faith. Now we see the problem. Now we come back. My soul wait in silence. We heard those words already. So this is the refrain again. We're going to see it. We saw it before. We see it now again. My soul waits in silence for God only, for my hope is from Him. And notice the only again. My hope is from Him. He only is my rock and my salvation, my stronghold. I shall not be shaken. And so we've seen those words before. We come back. But now we build upon those. We're not running back to the problem. We will go there in a second when we get to verse 9. But verse 7, on God my salvation and my glory rests. I find my salvation. Now, when I talk about my glory, um, kavod is the Hebrew term for glory, and it, when we say glory in English, we think maybe glory as bright light shining the spotlight. You have a slightly different image when you go to Hebrew, because the basic meaning of the word kavod, glory, is weightiness, heaviness. And you think, well, heaviness isn't good. It is in the ancient culture. Heaviness constituted value. Think about, you didn't pull out a $20 bill, you pulled out a piece of gold or silver, and its value was determined by its weight. And so I want you to see that connection here. On God, my salvation and my glory rest, the rock of my strength. Rocks are not, especially this kind of rock. This isn't like a little pebble. This is a great big old rock. The rock of my strength, my refuge is in God. He's my hiding place. He's the place where I can stand. So the rock idea is maybe I can stand on that, or maybe I can be in it. That's the refuge idea. Think about maybe a cleft in the rock sort of idea, some place of safety. Verse 8, trust in Him at all times, O people. Pour out your heart before Him. This is now instructional. It's telling us how we, the reader, should act based upon this continuing refrain. So I trust in Him at all times, O people. Pour out your heart before Him. And this last statement, God is a refuge for us. Okay? So we had the second refrain and now instruction from that. But now we go back to the problem again. Men of low degree. And so here we've been there. Men of low degree are only vanity, and men of rank, that's another way of saying men of low degree. But notice these are people that maybe look like they've got authority. So it's not just people, they're of low degree in the sense that they're not very nice people. They're not to be respected, but they are men of rank. They are men that maybe have a high degree of what they think of as influence and power, but really they're a lie, because God is the one who has great influence and power. Notice the next line. In the balances, they go up. And remember I said that real value was seen by its weight, by its glory, by its heaviness. Well, these folks, they're in the balances, and when it says they go up, that's not a good thing. In other words, they're not heavy. They don't have value. You put real value on one side of the scale, and you put them on the other side, and the real value pulls that down. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. And they just like go up because there's nothing to them. Um, so in the balances, they go up. Together, they are lighter than breath. That's not good. That's bad. Verse 10, do not trust in oppression. That's what they're all about. They're about oppressing people. And they believe the power to do that. And they do have that earthly, temporal power, but it's not going to last. That's the point here. So do not trust in oppression, and do not vainly hope in robbery and doing unrighteous things to advance yourself. And notice it's in this context that riches are mentioned. If riches increase, and it's not saying necessarily that it's bad to be rich. If you came by money honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. But don't trust in that. And here the picture is that these men of low degree, men of rank, they've got money, they've stolen it, they've oppressed for it. If riches increase, do not set your heart upon them. Don't go that way. Because money is not, well, can I say it this? It's not a value, not in the eternal sense, not in the ultimate sense. So we saw verses 1 and 2. That was the soul in silence waits. That was the refrain. And then we saw the evil men, verses 3 and 4. Next, we saw again the refrain, the soul in silence waits, verses 5 through 8, with a little bit of instruction thrown in. Here again, we're looking at the evil men, verses 9 and 10. And now we're going to come next to the conclusion. So let's go to verses 11 and 12 to see the conclusion. Here it is. Once God has spoken. Twice I have heard this. I'm coming away with this is the big so what. Here it is, that power belongs to God. You want to see where real weightiness, where real value is, where real riches, where real influence. Look to the Lord. He has that. Power belongs to God. And verse 12, our closing statement, and loving kindness is yours. So notice we've been speaking about God, but now we speak to him. And loving kindness, remember that's that term chesed, that's the idea of loyalty. And loving kindness / loyalty is yours, O Lord. You want to be loyal to him. For you recompense a man according to his work. Now that's, when we hear that ending, we especially if we've been in tune with grace and God's gift, we think, wait a minute, you recompense a man according to his work. Is that bad? No, that's actually good. You see, in this contrast between the godly and the ungodly, between the one who's waiting for the Lord and the one who is out to just get his own thing, and he doesn't care who he steps on and who he hurts. This is telling us that God will balance the books. And if you've been stepped on, if people have done evil to you, don't worry, God's going to balance the books. He will see that justice prevails. And you say, well, is that contrary to the cross? No, that's part of what the cross was all about. You see, Jesus came to die for us, to balance the books on our behalf, so that we could stand in justice and righteousness before a just and righteous God. And that doesn't say go out and do evil and it's okay. No. To the contrary, God's saying, I'm going to balance the books. And so you better balance up with me now. Today is the day for salvation. You trust in me. You find my salvation and then live like it, then reflect that to others before a world that looks like it's not balanced at all. And you trust in me because I'm going to balance all of the books, because power belongs to God.